Welcome back to the Hillbilly RV channel. I think it's time for an update on the service fan. Yesterday was 2 months that it's basically been broke down. Some of you may be new to the channel. Let me give you just a quick overview. 2 months ago, I went to start it one morning, just like normal, and it did not start. I turned the key and went just click, 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 click. Like, you know, bad connection, bad ground, something. Or bad solenoid on the starter. Well, about the fourth time I did that, it started, ran just fine, ran for just a few minutes, and then it just started clattering, just fuel knocking like crazy, because the electric lift pump back area at the fuel tank, it's not in the tank on that, it's external, but the electric fuel pump quit working, and it's because the ECM, the engine control module, quit putting out power to turn the relay on to turn the fuel pump on. There's where everything started that morning. All my problems started. I didn't know at the time why I could not find an ECM for this. And I'll go into that a little bit here later, a little bit more. So yeah, I mean, I think I called actually the Chevrolet dealership here in town first. And they were like, no, we don't have any ECMs, and we don't see any, anywhere near. So okay, so I go to Advance Auto. No, well, they don't have any. They don't have any access to them. I said, huh. So I started calling junkyards, and junkyards nowadays, if you're not aware, a lot of them are part of a big network, and there may be, a dozen junkyards all around the country that are all, networking. Well, I called a couple of those, and there was no used ones, no junkyard ones either. I thought, that's weird. So then I remembered that I'd had a card on my desk for probably 20 years, 15 years, I don't know how long, that a company had sent me a long time ago. It was ACE, Auto Computer Exchange, out of Florida. So I thought, that card's still on my desk. So I gave him a call, and they was like, yeah, man, we got one. It's pricey, really pricey. Well, I said, well, I mean, it was so expensive. I told him, I said, well, let me do some checking around. He's like, well, now, if you're going to talk to that company in New York State, he said, let me tell you right now, that'll be a huge mistake, because he said, you can go look at their, you can go to Better Business Bureau and look them up. And he said, they got like a 1.2 star or something. They're horrible. They're cheaters, they're liars, they never do anything they're going to say they're going to do, and they're just complete rip-offs. So I go look, and sure enough, he's right. Better Business Bureau got like a 1.2 star. And so I thought, well, So I found another company down in North Carolina, and just found them on the internet, and I went to Better Business Bureau. They're no better. Just poor customer service. They send you bad equipment, and then they won't stand behind it. Same blah, 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 both companies. So I'm like, well, gosh, I don't know what to do now. And old dummy me, I never went to BBB and checked out ACE until it was too late. But I was really on the fence. I was trying to find one. I couldn't find one. So finally, I started doing some investigating on ACE. Sure enough, they ain't no better than anybody else. And now the funny thing is, you go to these companies' websites, and they're like 5 stars across the board. Nothing but good to say. But you go to the Better Business Bureau, and they got horrible ratings, horrible reviews. Nothing good to say about any of these companies. So that tells you right there, don't trust websites, because apparently they're easily manipulated. So just take that for what it's worth. So then I didn't know what to do. And then I was like, well, I got to have an ECM. So I decided to just go with ACE. And so I ordered one. So I called the guy, my salesman, and I called him up. I'm like, yeah, let's go ahead and do this. He said, okay, great. and let's have some credit card information. So I gave them the credit card information. Well, that night, they charged my card. Like, so they shipped it already? So I gave them a week. And so I called and I was like, hey, salesman at AC, when can I expect my ECM? He's like, well, did you send the old one yet? I was like, no, I was not told to send the old one. Oh, we gotta have the old one so we can clone all the information onto the one we have. I was like, well, that'd have been good to know a week ago. So I sent it to him. Well, it sat down there for, that one sat there almost a week before anybody touched it. Anyhow, so they sent me an ECM, okay? You know, it is what it is. I got it. I was working, at that time, I was working with Eli at Discount Diesel, great guy. So we put the ECM in and it wouldn't start. I was like, well, poo. So I had the van towed to a local Chevrolet dealership, and they were supposed to work on it that day. Well, they didn't work on it for a couple days. And then I got the call. It's like, hey, what's supposed to be wrong with this van? Mechanic, you know, cleared the codes, drove it to the next town and back, runs perfect. It's like, seriously? So I went and picked it up, and I drove it for a few days. I drove it just real local here, like between my house and Mom and Dad's house a few times. Then I loaded all my tools back up in my van. Went and done a couple service calls. Come out one morning. I may have put 150 miles on. And went to start the van. Check engine light came on. And I read the codes, and it was something completely different. The original ECM would not run the fuel pump, the electric fuel pump. And then the replacement ECM would not run the fuel pressure regulator and the turbo regulator. Something about the turbo turns the turbo on and off. I don't know exactly how that works, but something in that ballpark. Okay. So I call up AC, and I'm like, yeah, this computer, this ECM you sent me is bad again. Like, what? So they wanted it checked out by a more qualified shop. So I had it towed to a town, a couple towns away, and had it towed to Fayette Car Clinic. Shout out to Josh at Fayette Car Clinic. He's been fantastic. He went all over the wiring harness. He tested and load tested all the wires that were associated with these new codes. Could find nothing wrong with the codes or with the wiring. So AEC's like, well, send it back. We'll repair it and send it back to you. Great. So I sent it back to them. All right. They drug their feet. Almost, it was 2 weeks, or maybe just a little over 2 weeks later, I get a box. I'm really excited. So they sent me a box. In the box was the computer that they had sent me to replace my original one. And guess what? There was my original ECM in there also. I'm like, why is there two? I mean, they think a lot of these cores, I think they want $300 or $400. If you don't send a core in, they're going to charge your card like $300 or $400 per core. So they really want their cores, right? So I'm like, well, that's weird. If you really want those cores back that bad, why did you send me two? So, okay. Well, I figure we got 2 chances to get it right. I figure they're both been repaired, right? They both have, you know, they both look like they've been opened up. My original one, and they're got their security tape on it, stuff like that. Got their tags on it. They take the original tags off, put their tags on. I figure, okay. So I got a chance to have 2 good ECMs. Take them over to Josh, and he's like, I think later on that day, he got a chance to work on it. He's like, guess what? Guess what? He said, the original computer still has the, has the code for the fuel pump. This is not powering the fuel pump. The other ECM has the exact same codes as I had before. It won't power the fuel pressure regulator or the turbo controller. Like, seriously? So I call up AC. I'm like, what the heck? And the girl's like, oh, you have to talk to the owner. I said, great, put the owner on the phone. So she put Lewis on the phone. And Lewis was like, well, you've got he said, I know exactly what's wrong with your van. He said, the wires are shorted out the crank sensor. He said, I know that's what it is. It gets them computers every time. And wires short out, blows up the computer. Okay. He said, well, send them back and I'll see if I can find you one. He said, we can't seem to find one. We've been looking, we can't seem to find one. Okay. So I call up Josh. I said, Josh, hey bud, can you go check out the wires around the crank sensor? Lewis says, that's what's blowing these computers up. He knows it for a fact. That's exactly what's wrong. So I get me and Cameron's actually up the garage working on that pop-up, which videos are before and after this one probably. I go out and check my phone. Well, Lewis has done called or texted me. He's like, give me a call. So I give him a call and he's like, hey, he said, forget about that crank sensor. He said, I thought you had an 05. I said, no, I have an 06. It's always been an 06. That's what we were talking about, an 06 Chevy van, express van with the Duramax. It's 06. Oh, he said, well, don't worry about that. He said, it's not the crank sensor. He said, I thought you had the older one. Great. He said, but we found a computer. It's right here on the shelf. He said, we ordered 2 for somebody and we only needed 1. We got 2 by accident. And he said, we got 1. I'm like, what? Why didn't you send me that 2 weeks ago? So anyhow, I called Josh. Guess what? He's already tore into the wiring harness. He's got a bunch of wiring harness tore up, looking at the wiring around the crank sensor and all that. But, so, I don't know. It's just, nothing's gone right. So Josh had said something about, well, how about one of the ambulance companies here in town? They used to run a bunch of them old Duramax vans. I'm like, ooh, I hadn't even thought about that. I tried to start getting with some of the ambulance companies, and you kind of got to have an in somehow. You got to have a foot in the door. So I called the one. They's like, no, we don't sell parts. I called another one, and I'd actually worked with them before. I'd worked. The owner of the company has a motorhome, has had RVs, and I've worked on these RVs, and I've worked with the guys down there in the maintenance area. Because that's where the RV was at when I was working with it. So I called him up, and shout out to Pat at Stat Ambulance. He's like, yeah, man. He said, call the mechanics and get with them tomorrow, and we'll see what we'll come up with. He said, I think we got one. Okay. So I go down there the next day, and they've got 2 07 vans that have Duramax, and they have ECMs. So we went in, they just went in and handed me both of them. They said, here, take these, try them, and see if they work. If they work for you, then we'll figure out what we want for them. I said, great, works for me. So I take those to Josh, and Josh works on it later on that afternoon. He said, bad news. What? He said, those computers are not compatible with your van. I was like, what? Come to find out, that 06 Chevy van with the Duramax. 06 was the first year General Motors put a Duramax diesel in a van, okay? Mine's an 06. Well, early in production of 07, somewhere around, well, maybe the middle of the production of 07, they completely changed everything. Changed a lot of the engine configurations, changed the ECMs. So guess what I got? I got ECMs for LMM motors. My van has the LBZ engine. The LMM engine, actually way back in 07, I didn't realize that, had started putting some emission stuff on them. So just not compatible at all. So we're back to square one on the van. If anybody out there knows anybody that might have an ECM for a 2006 Chevrolet 3500 Express van with a Duramax diesel, please, please get them in contact with me, or give me some contact information or something. I mean, I'm getting desperate here. I have to get an ECM, and I think like the ambulance companies are probably going to be my best bet, because they probably didn't produce that many of those diesel vans. And you think about it, they were probably mostly bought up by the ambulance companies. So if they've got any old junk sitting around, maybe they're going to have an ECM. So yeah, I still have just a couple lines in the water. I'm got some leads on some ECMs at some other ambulance places. So hopefully I can find one. But if you guys out there can help me, that would be great too. An old motorhome on a Chevrolet chassis. Has to be an 06 or a very, very early 07. Now I know the difference, so I think I could identify the different ones. But anyhow, so if y'all could help me, that'd be great. In a recent video, I showed what I always called hook light. I'm pretty sure that's what it was called. It was a yellow tester that was a wire piercing tester. And a lot of people, wanted to know what that tester was and how it worked or whatever. But I couldn't find those plastic ones, because mine's all plastic except for the piercer thing. I couldn't find those on Amazon, but I did find something, and I think I'm actually going to like it better. So let me show you this tester. This is an OEM Tools circuit tester. It is in my Amazon store. There's a link below to my Amazon store. Go check it out. It's just like any other test light. It's got your alligator clip that you would, normally put on a ground, and then if you're working on 12 volt, which you better not be working on anything bigger than that. You hook this to a wire that has 12 volt on it, and the light comes on. What makes this light kind of special is the way it will pierce a wire. See the piercer? You take and just pull this plastic piece up, and you can get your wire in here, and it will hold the wire centered. Let me get my face out of the way. It'll hold the wire centered in this plastic cap, and then you let the piercer go up, and you can actually pull it down till it pierces that wire. So this is for stranded wire like you'd find in your RV or in your automobiles or whatever. But this pretty cool. All right, just take and pull the piercer down. I don't know what it's called, but we're gonna call it piercer. Let her go. That puts the wire in the center. Then you just pull down on this a little bit, and it pierces the wire. Now, if this were a live wire and we had the alligator clip hooked to ground, then this light would be glowing. Now, I use that light a lot like that, and it's great for like reaching back in a wiring harness. You've got a wiring harness, or you just got a gobble of wires. You got 8 or 10 wires back in there. You can just reach it back in there, snag the wire you want. It kind of separates it from the others, or even if it doesn't separate, you just grab the wire you want in the little plastic thingy there, and you can pierce that wire. It's really handy, super handy. I also kind of like this one because it's actually going to be multi-purpose, because the piercer actually goes to the end, so you can use it like a regular test light, or a wire piercing, or a hook light. So I think this is going to be pretty cool. I'm actually pretty excited to try this now. I don't know about the quality, the longevity. I don't know any of that. Well, let's say you're working on, a bundle of 6 or 8 wires, and they're kind of just out there in space, or they're maybe laying against metal. Well, you don't want to take a regular test light and start piercing those wires, because you might go all the way through, hit your ground. If it's laying on something that's grounded, short everything out. There you go. You got a mess. Or if the wire's just kind of out in space, well, you can't stick it. You have to put your fingers up in there, and before you know it, you got a hole in your fingers. This eliminates all that. These are actually really cool. I've used my old yellow one forever and a day, and it works fantastic. I hope this one works, because I'm really excited for it. I'm really excited to try it. So it's because it's longer than my old one. If you're interested in this light, go down the link below. I got all kinds of stuff in my Amazon store. So go check it out. RV parts, tools, my camera equipment, my audio equipment, all that stuff's in my Amazon store. So go check it out. If you're new to my channel, this is not a typical video. You know, I just wanted to give people an update on my van and beg for help because I need to find an ECM. So, you know, I don't know who this might reach or what may come of it, but man, if anybody can help me, that'd be great. You know, if you are new to my channel, please don't forget to like my videos, subscribe if you have not, ring that bell and you'll get notified when I post new videos. I am not going to go up the road and fix another one. I'm actually going to unload a load of firewood and then I'm going to the house and eat supper, and y'all have a fantastic day.